I'm here to call the council meeting on Wednesday, September 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. To my right, I got Council Farwell, Council Griffin, and to my left, I got Council Lally, and myself, Council Texera. We're here to review the vendors warnings, right? So,
thank you, Accounts Committee, for attending this evening. To everyone at home watching and for the committee, I've presented an agenda for tonight. Agenda item number 1, I'd like to discuss briefly the status of the FY23 audit and what goes into detail with actually completing an audit by a city or a town. So when everyone has an understanding of what other work this office does besides paying bills and auditing and processing payrolls. Thereafter, we'll go into our warrants payable review, and we can go over any bills that you have questions on. We can pull up invoices and so forth, and I welcome that discussion. So with an audit, most cities and towns hire an external auditor to oversee the internal controls of our audit, which basically governs the systems throughout the entire city, and the school department included. We have to make sure we adhere to Massachusetts general law through the Department of Revenue, the way we do work in our office when it comes to paying bills, having a warrant signed by proper officials, processing payrolls per federal guidelines as well. All of this plays a role in items requested from an external auditor of the city auditor's office to ensure, pretty much in a nutshell, the financial stability of the city. So we've enlisted the services of Clifton Larson Allen since 2014, so they've been with us for 10 years. Auditors are exempt from Chapter 30B from procurement laws, so there's no contract, but the way it works is, in lieu of a contract, most external auditors put together an engagement letter, which is basically a scope of work that we can agree to with their charges for what they're going to do for the audit, and you go from there. I wanted to bring up the progress we're making on the FY23 audit. Again, I've stated publicly that because of things like deficits and so forth, it puts a great strain on my office to assist the city in fixing any accounting entries that are wrong, or just fixing anything in general when it comes to the accounting. Outside of processing a payroll and processing bills, we also perform auditing functions. We process journals in line with the DOR per UMAS, the Uniform Massachusetts Accounting System. We're supposed to also perform internal audits of the departments. In a perfect world, I would have time to do that. Unfortunately, I haven't, given my short amount of time being here so far, and unfortunately, dealing with the school deficit. So what happens with an external audit? So our auditors come on site. Oh, I didn't want everybody to see that, but that's the portal. And they give us a list of 135 items. It could be between 135 and 150 items. And they want any and everything when it comes to appropriations that were passed. Not just budget reports, balance sheets, accrual liabilities. We were just talking about that the other night. Claims for workers' comp, anything you can think of that would explain the business aspect of the functionings of the city. They want a spreadsheet, they want a document, they want to know what's going on because they want to track progress. These items are normally split up between, the Treasury, who will provide them with things like back statements so they can verify the cash balance from a banking perspective to the cash balance we have in the accounting system. They'll ask for things like, from the school department, Schedule 19, which is a report we put together for DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Anything you could, the retirement board, what's the retirement liability? How much do we pay them? What's their actuarial report? There's a separate audit for the retirement board that gets facilitated through my office by Clifton Larson Allen. They basically ask for everything under the stars to ensure that these processes are running smoothly. Normally, an external audit on average could take between 3 and 6 months, depending on the action going on within a city or a town. Given the turnover and given everything that's going on, we've been severely, severely delayed in completing the FY23 audit. It's going to be complete before the end of the year. The DOR won't certify our tax rate without it being complete. We also can't go to bond issuance to fund capital projects until the audit is complete. So just to put things into perspective, what me and my staff should be doing, along with processing payrolls and auditing payroll and making sure that's correct, along with auditing bills and making sure everyone's falling within lines of allowable expenses, with taxpayer money. We should only be performing an audit and serving our external auditors with everything they need. And it's time consuming. So if you think about it, it's 135 items, but one item could be a series of thousands and thousands of rows on a spreadsheet from the accounting system that we have to manipulate and be able to give some kind of a figure that makes sense to the external auditors. That could take days, it could take weeks, depending on the item. On top of that, there are questions by the external auditor. So there could be a series of back and forth as to why something may be a little different from what they saw last year, and we have to have a reasonable answer to provide them. That takes time. So just to put things into perspective, if you figure there's 135 items, each item could take a day to a week to several weeks to complete, to satisfy the external auditors. Add that all up, that's quite a large amount of time. So now imagine we're trying to complete this, and we've got functions throughout the entire city, business functions, accounting functions that directly affect our figures on our system that aren't working. And we're trying to assist everybody and help them. We can't dedicate the time that's required to an external audit as we should, because it really should be the only thing that we're doing. I've said publicly the other night, and I believe I have said it before in other accounts committee meetings, we've got all the help in the world to get us through this. I just wanted to use this forum so the taxpayers understood the delay and the amount of work that goes into doing something like this. We really need the help of all of the city departments in understanding that and staying on top of their business practices and their procedures to make it easier for us to be able to perform our work, if that makes sense. I think that's all of it in a nutshell. I welcome any questions regarding the FY23 audit.
I have one question, Madam Auditor. In your opinion, do most of the departments in the city buy into that theory?
No. No, there's still this sense, and, please correct me if I'm wrong. There's still this sense that anything having to do with business and money is the city auditor's job. Mm-hmm. It's the CFO's job. That's their work. No. It can't just be our work, because that would be physically impossible.
Right.
We need departments to play more of an active role in understanding UMIS, understanding their systems, understanding that they should be building systems that would increase speed in getting us what we need, so when a CLA shows up, we can easily spout it out and give them whatever they want instantly. I'm glad you brought that point, Councilor Griffin, because another delay could be waiting to get information from an outside department. If it's not available on the system, and if there's no system built in place for that department to make it easier for us, we're almost expected to come up with a system for them. I don't understand how we alone would be able to do that, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And how do you have an idea how we could get these people to buy in?
I think this forum and people watching and paying attention is the first step.
Yeah.
I think empowering departments to feel like they can do it, and if they make a mistake or do anything wrong, that there's nothing wrong with that. I learned my greatest lessons from my mistakes. There is a component that it does need to align with the auditor's office. It does need to align with, let's say, a procurement or a CFO's office or treasury. Those are kind of like the crux of like the meat when it comes to the business and how it's run in the city. Anything to do with banking or merchant accounts or anything of that nature for cash, don't even think of doing anything without telling the treasurer first. Anything to do with procuring services over $10,000, if you don't know anything about 30B, you got to reach out to the procurement officer for the city so they can teach you and let you know what's going on. When it comes to building a system, and if it has a direct effect on, let's say, payroll or AP, or even coming up with some kind of a spreadsheet to give me something for the auditors, you would probably want to enlist the city auditor. We make ourselves available for that, for it to make sense, so it doesn't disrupt our processes. Similarly, I guess with the budget, you're looking for the money. Who do you talk to? What codes can I hit for this? Can I get this? You talk to the CFO. He's the one that helps you budget your stuff, making sure that it's, within a reasonable amount. And if you even have it for now, maybe it has to wait until next fiscal year, I don't know. There are resources around you, the business experts, if you will, who have to report to the DOR, we have to abide by MGL, to help. But department heads should feel empowered to come up with these solutions on their own, instead of expecting someone else to do it for them. If that makes sense.
It does. Now, what do you see the disconnect actually being, though? The resources seem to be there for the department heads, but there's still, as you say, a disconnect.
I think there's a disconnect in that I feel like people don't think that they can or that they're allowed to. I don't see why you can't build a system for your own department. It's something to bring up and to have a sit-down with the interested parties, even to ask. I'm thinking of doing this. All right, it's fine with me as long as XYZ.
Yeah.
So who says you can't? If it speeds things up for you and speeds things up for everybody else, why not?
Yes, it seems more of a management issue
It is.
than the resource issue.
And again, there's times where I'm thinking now, how am I going to modernize my processes? And I have to think out of the box. Who can I use? Where I need some extra help. So who's the first person I go to if after doing research online and utilizing my resources on LinkedIn and I'm still hitting a roadblock? Who do I go to? With a business sense, as a professional, I purposely build relationships with colleagues because maybe they know someone who can help me out. This is Business 101. That's a huge resource. Building trust amongst partners so we can help each other and not try to, the alternative, which is take each other down.
I mean, are most of the departments working in their own individual silo, or there isn't that collective sharing of information?
I wouldn't say it's a silo. It just seems like we just need to get a little more organized. I don't think everyone understands the urgency in some things. And I think hopefully if everyone were to watch this footage now and they understand what goes into an audit, there'll be a more clear-cut understanding of how much work goes into completing this and why time is of the essence when, we need something, and why having a system break or no one paying attention to it is detrimental to me being able to complete my work here, and so forth.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a question? Council Falwell?
So just for the public to understand, what the FY23 audit discussion, we're talking about the annual one that we do, not the one that was just done by Nystrom Beckman. I think that's...
Correct.
That's important. And I was talking to a constituent the other day, and I think this person was right. We don't explain, I think, very well what we do and how we do it. I think municipal government is still somewhat of a nebulous animal that no one really knows too much about. So I just want to go through a few simple steps and just correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd like the public to know what we do, and then I'll get in a little bit with you about where we go from here. Let's just take school transportation, which obviously is always on our mind. So a decision is made that we need to hire a vendor for $25,000 to transport students. At that point, a purchase order is generated, and it's signed by the person requesting that expenditure, and then it goes to the department head for his or her signature. Am I right so far?
That's right.
All right, and then if it's on the school side, it goes to the superintendent, whomever he or she may be. They have to sign it?
Right. Can I elaborate on that a bit?
Yes.
So the workflow for a purchase order starts with a department. They enter a requisition, they put in all necessary information for it to become a PO. It gets first approved by them. Okay? I want to create this into a purchase order. I want to make this expense. It goes to, if it's over $10,000, it gets pinged to the procurement officer who needs to approve it prior to us approving it to turn it into a purchase order. Does that make sense? So
Yep.
if it's over $10,000, it automatically goes to Mike Morris. And what he's doing is he's making sure everybody's following 30B. And if he's seeing that the sum, you're paying this vendor $5,000 now, but you've paid him $20,000 3 months ago, and we're within the fiscal year. Now, that puts a bell off in the procurement officer's department. Where's the contract?
Yes. Yep.
That's how the purchase orders work. There was a point not too long ago where the school department worked separately from that, which would explain the lack of procurement controls. And I hate to put it this way, but the illegalities when it came to the procurement and paying vendors with no contracts at all. It's my understanding those have been combined now. We can bring Mike back, to go over that, and I believe they have been. After it gets approved through procurement, it comes to us for approval. We see it's approved by the department head, so that's how we know we're okay. Really, at the end of the day, it's the department head's responsibility to track all of this. You should already know 30B, procurement laws. You should already know what we need from an auditing perspective in terms of an invoice. And if you want us to pay something, it has to pass a normal audit. We approve it, we print it out. Sometimes they want us to email them to them. They get the purchase order. Now it turns into payment. When they're ready, they send it back to us and they request payment with an invoice. It goes through an audit, a very detailed, stringent audit. To a point. Is there a vendor name on this? Does it look like a normal bill, not something someone just wrote on a piece of paper? Is there a service date? Do the dates fall within the fiscal year if you're hitting against the general fund? If they don't, are you hitting against grants, capital? What are you doing with this? Is there a total? Who's it for? Department name. A lot of the times, especially since I came on, we've been teaching departments what an invoice is. And they're telling their vendors, we need an invoice. There's vendors who don't know what an invoice is. To the point where I'm sending emails and say, tell your vendor to go to Staples and buy invoice software for $30. This is something businesses should know. It's not hard. But it's fairly simple. If it's an invoice, we process it. Do we call every vendor, the 8,000 vendors we have, to make sure that a legitimate vendor and that it's not just made up? No. How could we? The departments need to make sure that you're doing business with someone legitimate and that it's real. Having contracts, having things like procurement officers would greatly help in that sense, especially with the bigger departments. Thereafter, we pay the bill. As long as it's within guidelines, passes a decent audit, it falls within the MGL rules when it comes to the type of payment you're making, whether you're hitting the general fund or you're hitting a trust fund, okay? And we process it. Everything needs to also add up. If you're giving us a total of 500, but we do the math for everyone, we'll add all the services together, doesn't add up, we'll kick it back. Things like that.
But at the level of generating the purchase order, that department, or certainly the department head, maybe not the admin or the person inputting the data, it is the department head's responsibility to know, okay, I do have sufficient funds remaining in my appropriation to cover this. Am I right?
You're right. They should. Have there been instances where we get bills and it doesn't pass the budget check? I'm sorry, not we get bills, we get requisitions, and it doesn't pass the budget check? Yes. Because in that instance, someone's not looking.
And at some point, the Department of Revenue reviews all that we do. My understanding is that when the assessors come up with the aggregate value of all of the properties in this city, the Department of Revenue has to approve that before we set the tax rate, because the tax rate is predicated on the prior year's levy plus 2.5% increase plus any new growth. And so are there not multiple layers of review on what we do, either through the private accounting firm when they go through the FY23 or FY22 data? And I'm asking this question so that hopefully the person I talk to is watching, that they understand that it isn't, we're not just auditing ourselves, we're not just supervising ourselves.
Right.
There are other people who are watching us.
There is. The DOR, the assessor, there's this portal where we upload all of our financial goodies to the DOR. It's called Gateway. The assessor fills out a page, breaking down all his stuff, overlay, whatnot, coming up with the tax levy that goes over to me. I fill out about 6, 7 different other pages, reporting our statement of indebtedness, all of our debt, our receivables, cash, a basic balance sheet that goes over the council's appropriations. The DOR wants to see them. We fill out their version of their balance sheet. The treasurer fills out his own page to show our cash balances. The extra layer is the external auditor, who's pulling our purchase orders, pulling our bills to make sure we're paying things right per normal auditing procedures, pulling our bank statements and seeing what cash we have on hand and what's on the system, things like that. So if we're going to go back to what just occurred with the deficit, we have to remember the FY23 audit with our external auditors hasn't happened yet. The deficit happened before it. In a perfect world, had there been no turnover and everything was groovy, we would have been done with the FY23 audit this past spring, and everything would have been discovered prior to when we discovered it the hard way. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think it's so important to recognize that the system only works if the people working have integrity.
Right.
If you don't enter purchase orders, if you
Yes, sir.
just have vendors do work, but then you hold back a stack of purchase orders, and I was told, and I don't know if this is true, maybe you do, that there were like 200 purchase orders from the schools that were just never entered. And so how would you know that we had a financial obligation to those vendors to pay those ultimately generated invoices? So the system is based on the competence and the integrity and the thoroughness of the work done by the people who are inputting the information, generating the paperwork, and making sure that your office has what it needs to do its work. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
All right, now, probably 8 years ago, I think there was a study done about staffing in the different municipal offices. That probably is irrelevant now after the recent audit done by the city solicitor's law firm. So I can't speak for my colleagues here, although I would kind of like it entered into the minutes of the meeting. I think given that Nystrom-Beckman report, that several things should happen. And this may seem harsh. I think I'm a nice person as long as my wife and children and grandchildren think so. I don't mind not being a nice person when it comes to administration. I think that report is the impetus for a meeting to be held, and we find out what do we need in this city for the auditing department and any other department to make sure that we address the shortcomings in that report. Staffing, training, minimum qualifications. I realize that might cross over into collective bargaining, because right now maybe employees can bid into the auditor's office, and they may have the educational background, but maybe not a scintilla of experience in finances. I really think that has to change. I think, if nothing else, that report has told us, listen, you have a lot of work to do.
Right.
And in order to get that work done, you have to have the proper staffing. But the other part of it is, and I will tell you, we don't have any enforcement powers. We don't supervise people. A lot of people think that we're supposed to enforce laws. If we have people anywhere who absolutely refuse to do their job, then I don't think they should be working here.
I'm in full agreement with that.
I mean, very respectfully, and I'm not, by the way, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, and I don't know
Right.
anyone that would fall into that category right now. But if you have people on the school department that refuse to track sick and vacation time, they don't belong there. They do not belong collecting a paycheck from the city of Brockton, and I don't care how long they've been there or what their title may be. It just is simply not acceptable now that we know what happened through that audit to continue to do business the way we are. And I would hope that maybe the administration, the city administration, would hold a meeting, and I know you have department head meetings periodically. I would hope that maybe check with the city clerk, have all the department heads come in here, bring their staff that would be appropriate. And I really do think there has to be a come-to-reality meeting as to what is going to be expected, what we need to do to address the shortcomings that were found in that report, and try to mold a cohesive group of people who understand the importance of their work, and that we really are depending upon them to maybe discard the ways you used to operate and transcend the customary practices and take it to the next level, and then eventually to the next level. Because if we don't, I just don't see any progress. And I don't mean to be long-winded about this, but things have got to change, and if people don't cooperate, they need to get out. They need to be removed, and we need to get people in here who will do the required work. Otherwise, you know, the old expression, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
Yep.
Well, auditing is only as strong as the people who are supposedly providing you with the information you need.
Correct. I think if you were to ask my professional opinion, I think the first thing we would need to do to sort of solidify the health of my office is to sit down at our next negotiations for the CBAs and seriously go over these job descriptions. They're not up to par with the standards in my office, the type of work that I'm soliciting for. We're offering a salary grossly underpaid for current labor market rates for this type of work. There are wordings in the jobs descriptions that make no sense to me from a business perspective, and it's no fault of the unions. I think it's just, as Councilor Farwell just said, I think we're at a transition phase now, where it's time to change, because we're not going to last if we still have this. We have to remember that it's 2024, inflation has occurred, and we have graduates coming out with bachelor's degrees with no experience, making almost $20,000 to $30,000 more than what we're offering for these crucial positions.
Well, and
If
just
that puts these things into perspective now.
and just to interrupt you, we actually have that disparity between Crescent Street and City Hall. I mean, you have people who have risen to a salary level over in the school department that is far above what people are being paid here, and it's obvious that that didn't translate into what we would have hoped would be.
It's ironic, because we've got the two extremes now, where we're grossly delayed on one side with progressing when it comes to these professional positions, and we're a little too far ahead on offering, if I can say it without getting in too much trouble, offering a little too much per normal labor practices when it comes to these positions.
I mean, you have to meet in the middle. I don't
Yeah.
think extremes work in anything.
Right.
Well, councilors, I hope, unless there's an objection, I would like to have it entered into the minutes of the meeting that the auditor should sit down with the chief financial officer and the mayor and express the opinion of the accounts committee that we need to take a second look at auditing, consolidation of auditing functions and the staffing in the office, because I really don't think we'll make much progress unless we do that. And I don't know how any of you feel, but I'll yield at this point and let
I agree
anyone
with you,
else chime
Councilor.
in.
I also think there has to be a buy-in by every manager of every department. I think, because again, it doesn't work by itself, it has to work
No,
collectively.
it doesn't.
But I would support everything that Councilor Farwell just said, and I don't know my other colleagues, but I'm sure they're on board with it too.
Are you all set? No. Council, you all set?
All set, thank you.
Council Lally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Madam Auditor.
Good evening.
I was hoping that some of the other documents you sent us about school transportation, I didn't get a chance to get all the way through it, but there was one company that stuck out to me, BAS Holding Corp.
Okay.
I was hoping we could just kind of look at them as a vendor,
Sure.
because we seem to have given them a decent amount of money, and Google says that they are a real estate firm in Miami, which is a little outside of our borders.
Okay. You said it was VAS Holding Company?
Yes,
Okay, let me do
Holding
it.
Corp.
All right. Do you have on the payable warrants,
I have, from what you sent, P24-043 or -075 or -116.
you said VAS?
B, B
Oh.
as in boy.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, that's why I can't find it on my list here. All right, here we go. Okay.
Yeah,
So
there it is.
they've been paid a total of $402,553.83 in fiscal year '24. Okay.
Nice. I was just wondering what they were, because a quick Google search did not yield a lot of encouraging results, and when I tried the number of the company, it sounded like it went to somebody's cell phone voicemail, which does not make me feel comfortable.
Comfortable.
Okay, so here are all the payments in 2024. I can select any one and we can drill in and look at invoices.
Yeah. Does it have the account description? Or the description? For any of them? Like,
Yes. So if we just look at this first one.
okay.
Okay, so this is a lease for a bus depot.
A lease for a bus depot.
And this is hitting the school's general fund.
Madam Auditor, I believe you'll find that's the fairgrounds. I believe that's the payments for the school department leasing space at the fairgrounds. This came up about 3 months ago, if I'm,
Through a holding corporation?
yes, yeah, I think that's the corporation that bills the school department for the, yeah. That's the invoice for
That's what it
the,
is, yeah.
the leasing of these fairgrounds.
All right, fair enough.
So here's an invoice. This is a typical invoice software that anybody can use. See this template? This you see everywhere. Any vendor, anyone can go and buy this software and have an invoice. This is the most common one you'll see.
All right.
Since we were talking about invoices before.
Yeah. All right. I'll leave it at that and then get into questions about the warrants in a little while, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Councilor Lanley. Sorry. We should. And file a resolve to bring those department heads before us. Because we all need to be on the same page, work together. It's not, it should be just your department or just the audit department to go and look for stuff. Because when you need to do a report, you got to make sure you got everything online. Because when you provide that to the outside audit, you want to make sure that you provide a complete report. So I think it's ideal to file a resolve and bring those department head, make sure we all are on the same page. Make sure, not say it's not my job, because it's everybody, you're there to do your job. And with my colleagues, I think it will make sense to bring them. We're not trying to do anything, just to ask them a question. How come you're not, if it's due date the 30th, make sure you get it by
And I also don't want to come off like that colleague that's going to, squeal on everybody and complain that I can't do my job because everyone's ruining my job for me. It's not that. If anything, I'm trying to solidify the health of this position. So let's say I get up and go at some point in time. There's going to be another person in here who's going to have the same problems.
Right.
Right? So we need to build the health of this office by building the health of everyone around us, of all the other departments, from a business, from a fiscal perspective.
Again, I don't see you as causing trouble. I think what you're really trying to do is just refine your position. But also, every department head has to buy into this, or it's just not going to work. It's that simple. And we've seen what happened at the school department with that type of disconnect, and there's obviously some room for some change here at City Hall also with the department heads here. So I think it's very good that you brought it up. I think it's something we should pursue as a group and as a council.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Councilor Christian. I will leave my time to Councilor Farwell.
No, I was just going to add that this isn't actually coming from you. The chair leaned over to me and asked what I thought, and when we file the resolve, I think what we will do is invite the department heads in and indicate that we're requesting their assistance and their input as to how collectively, as a team, even though we don't supervise them, and I realize there are two sets of department heads, some are in a union, some aren't, which I've always thought was a little bit peculiar, but, we have absolutely no supervisory powers over them, but I think if they hear from us that we do recognize we're a team. They have their roles to play. They're the career professionals. They come in every day. We have our role to play as elected officials. And I'm not sure, I'm trying to remember, and I followed politics in Brockton since 1975. I don't know if I've ever seen that happen, that the council just says to the department heads, we're here to help you, but we need your help now. We have an audit that revealed things that we cannot allow to continue, or we cannot repeat, and just ask them to come in and help us out. Maybe team building, if that's what you want to call it, but I think it would be very worthwhile.
I think so, too.
So you're
I
not,
agree.
you're not the bad person, don't.
Feel-
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my input, so I don't know if you guys have any other question? No?
Mr. Chairman?
Council Larry, you got one? Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm back.
It's all yours.
Okay. Let's see what I've got here. We've got a couple that I'll do offline. I want to spotlight that, we have paid several of these van organizations $100,000 or more. They have still not complied with 30B. I guess what I'd like to know to start with is P24-122, page 17. Brockton High graduation supplies. Not a lot of money, $383, $4,700 year to date, but the vendor is Costco. Does the school department have a Costco account?
I don't know.
That's my question.
Do you want me to pull up a PO?
Sure.
I mean, it might tell us something.
Yeah.
Do you see a PO number?
323-430-59.
So this hit the school's general fund. It looks like they bought water bottles for graduation. I mean, it's an allowable expense.
Yeah.
It's,
That makes sense.
I was just mostly intrigued that they went ahead and got a Costco account. There was some savings in that, but still interesting.
They might not have.
Uh,
They might have just gone to Costco.
Mr. Chairman, Point of Information Council, they can just show the 04 number at
Yeah.
Costco and shop there.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, they provided us with a receipt. I don't think they have an account per se.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was wondering about the feasibility of that. Okay, we've got another PO. 350-40292. Just says professional staff. But it's a teacher at Spelman. Which it also says
So this is a grant. They had a grant fund for this expense,
okay.
which means it would be allowable within the grant guidelines if everyone's doing what they're supposed to do and reading their grant agreements and making sure that it's an allowable expense, which I'm sure it is. Usually school stuff is, they're pretty good about that.
Yeah, I just was wondering what we were doing.
Looks like classes for staff,
Okay.
BC.
All right. I also want to spotlight, not needing to be pulled up, but we've got $52,000 year to date for the media group that consults with the mayor's office. Do we know if that went out to bid, or is that exempt, or?
If it was over $50,000, it should have gone on to bid.
Okay.
I mean, if it's over 10.
Yeah, right.
Trying to think, there's some exemptions to 30B. I don't think advertising's one of them, but I can forward a memo I put together for everyone and forward it to the committee if you'd like to see it.
Oh, sure.
Just basic exemptions to 30B. It was for the school department, but it really applies to everyone. I can forward that.
I think that's what I've got for now. Yeah, that's what I got for now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Well, I guess one in general. One of my favorites is Amazon, and I'm just going to mention that as of the end of the fiscal year, this is warrant number P24-122, it's on page 4, Amazon, $679,383.92 year-to-date paid, and I just, even if it's completely legal, I just find it odd that we have a contract with WB Mason and we're buying supplies from Amazon, and I never know where it's shipped. I never know who's signing for it. I'm not suggesting anything is out of the ordinary, but it is a lot of money. And I think that's one of the things that we need to talk about in the future is maybe if people order items from Amazon, they should come to a central location. They should be logged in, and it should indicate where it's being shipped, if it's going to a particular school, the Unknown, the Baker, the George. I think there just should be an additional level of detail as to what's being purchased and where it's being shipped. Transportation, on page 24 of P24-122. And again, I don't believe this is anything out of the ordinary, but you will notice that a relatively small company in I think it's in East Bridgewater, Fox Transportation, $742,258.59. That's just one vendor, and I don't know how many we have. And that is something that I want to bring to the committee's attention tonight, because we tried to address open competitive bidding for school transportation, and it's being ignored. So what I would like to do is enter into the record tonight, this is a copy of the ordinance. I wrote it, you all ordained it. It was signed by the mayor on June 27th, 2024. We were told that the school department was in the process of writing specifications for bids, and they haven't done it. And it's money being wasted. It is just an opportunity for us to have open competitive bidding, to get the lowest, most responsible bidders to transport and save what could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't understand the reluctance to do it. I was concerned when Councilor Thompson at a recent meeting said that a couple of members of the school committee said, well, that's not required by Chapter 30B, and that is true. For the record, special education services are exempt from Chapter 30B, but that's why other communities have done what we did. They have put through either a bylaw or an ordinance, and they have mandated that you have open competitive bidding. Now, how does this relate to you, Madam Auditor? Because it relates in this way. It indicates that no contract for the transportation of special education students shall be paid unless the vendor was selected after open competitive bidding conducted by the city's procurement officer. So what I would like to ask of this committee, and I'll do it in the form of a motion, I'd like to ask the auditor to meet with the superintendent of schools and include the city solicitor if necessary, and ask, when can we expect compliance with this ordinance? Now, if the school department wants to challenge it, I suppose they could file suit, go into Superior Court and try to have the ordinance overturned because they don't like it, they don't want to do the work. But until that happens, this is binding. We have every right to do what we did to try to save the residents of this city money in terms of transportation. It was mentioned repeatedly in the recent audit. So I'd like to offer this as part of the record tonight, and I'd like to make a motion to ask the solicitor to meet with the superintendent of schools and the auditor to meet with the superintendent of schools and include the solicitor if necessary to discuss how we can obtain compliance with our own ordinance.
Second.
And on the motion, Mr. Chairman, I might remind everyone, we take an oath when we're sworn in to uphold the laws of the Commonwealth and the ordinances of the city of Brockton, so I don't think I'm asking too much. I really don't think I'm asking too much.
So-
Thank you.
We got a motion, a second. All in favor?
On the motion,
On the motion?
I just want to point out, year to date, this is basically saying, this is from July 1st. I mean, the budget ends June 30th, right? So this is from July 1st to present, 9/16. It's only September, people. It's, right?
Just if I could, Mr. Chairman,
September, and-
I made that mistake. This is actually the closeout of FY '24.
Okay, well, I was
I
just
didn't
going by,
realize it.
I was going by the top.
I was too.
You see what I mean?
I made that
So,
mistake.
okay, so this is for the whole year of '23?
Yes.
Okay. Yes?
24.
Fiscal '24.
Fiscal 24, yeah. Fiscal
Okay,
24.
which ended June 30th?
It ends June 30th. Departments have the ability to,
Ends June 30th of 2025 or 2024?
2024.
Okay, okay. All
De-
right.
Departments have the ability to encumber funds for June expenses that they haven't received invoices yet by the end of June, up until July 15th, which is what they've done. It's called, if we were to close the books, let's say on the 30th, and we moved everything over to the new fiscal year, it would be called a carry forward. So
Right
they,
now, we're in fiscal '25, right?
We are.
We're in
We
fiscal
are, but-
'25, which started June 30th of 2024.
July 1st of '24.
Sorry, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, '24 ended June 30th, starts July 1st of 2024, ends June 30th of 2025.
Correct.
That's fiscal '25.
Right.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Counselor Farwell, for pointing that out. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we all good, so we just vote, all in favor, and we're gonna,
Let the Madam Auditor.
Madam,
follow up.
yeah, just follow up with that and stuff, because I had the same question, Council Farwell,
Yes,
I highlighted the same question,
just
because
one vendor.
just one vendor, 742,258 and 59 cents. Do we know how many bus? Do we know how many student they transfer? We don't have that.
I'm
Yeah.
sure the auditor could research it.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether they have a fleet of vehicles or the nature of the charges.
On that account, can we find out what the rate of pay is as well? I mean, I would really like to look into everything with regard to this account. As an example, again, Councilor Farwell said we're not saying there's something inappropriate, but I would like to use this as an example to really analyze and see what is the rate of pay, how is it determined, you know, in how many units, and, you know, what are they contracted to do, where are they driving from and to, and so that we can get a handle on whether or not this contract or this arrangement makes fiscal sense for the city of Brockton. It just use this as, you know, as a
Great idea, Councilman Chell, but I think it's best to follow.
template, so to speak, that we need to analyze first.
I think it would be a great idea if we can, because, you know, trying to bring the accounts to us and answer all these questions, I think it's, if we go direct to the,
Or is it better if we visit your office? Will this information be in your office, or do we have to go to the school department for this?
You'd have to go to the school department.
Yeah,
What we
that's-
would get from my office is bills and me trying to get your information off of bills.
So which office would I need to go to?
I would speak to, we can speak through the superintendent, but we'd want to speak to the director of transportation. We'd want to know exactly what's going on with this
Okay.
fleet.
because I think it would be a better idea if we can just either file a resolve to bring the,
Well, I already did. I
Oh,
found
you
that
did?
resolved.
so
Yeah,
then we can just ask them all the questions.
Clerk left for vacation. I filed that
Oh, she
resolve.
Oh, okay.
So that invitation has been taken care of.
So,
So, but before that meeting, I would like to look at this, so, I don't know, maybe if one of you kind counselors would want to go with me, make an appointment over there, and I'll go myself, but if someone wants to go, two eyes are better than one, you know, reviewing this kind of data, that's all.
I'll tag along.
Okay, great.
thank you, Councilman
I'll
Chell.
treat you for lunch.
That's on the
In
record.
that case, then.
Fine, I'll fool you guys. All right, I know. And you're invited as well, Madam Auditor.
Oh, thank you. I think it would be wise if my staff, we printed out some bills from you so you could have some substance before.
Maybe I prefer just to go with you and leave these guys over here, you know?
I still have lunch.
That might be
It's the
better.
move.
Yeah.
So we
So,
That was it, Councilman
that's,
Chell.
that's,
All right.
that's enough. I guess I've said enough on this one.
I know you had a question, Council Lally. Just go right ahead,
Okay.
because I gotta.
Starting with one, I picked up, and this isn't a particular PO that I'm interested in, but on page 128, warrant P24, 124, we have Woodward's Auto Spring Shop and Woodward's Auto Spring Shop Incorporated. They have different vendor numbers and a different year-to-date amount being spent. And I didn't know if there's any particular reason for that, if there was just some sort of, filing error, but different numbers, different year-to-date. Figured I'd inquire. I can give you the vendor numbers if you want.
Nope, it's all right. I'd rather look it up by name and see. Is one of the amounts for Woodward Auto Spring Shop a small amount paid? It could be, it would have been for their excise tax.
Yeah, like $30.
Yeah, that's what that is. They probably had, probably didn't pay their excise tax in time, and they got pinged for that first, you get a fee when you're late.
Yeah.
It's a $30 fee after 30 days, and it turns into another $30.
Fair enough.
The actual vendor ID for them is 4081.
Well, the year-to-date for 4081 is $158,000, but the year-to-date for the incorporated, where there's a, this is a $30 excise thing, the year-to-date is 3,200.
We may have used the wrong vendor ID when we were making payments.
Hmm.
And by we, I mean the requisition and purchase order was opened for hitting the wrong vendor ID.
Yeah.
That would, I can confirm, but that would be something that comes from the department, not us.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Auditor, on that one you just had, that can't be right. Entered August 2nd, 2001.
Unless it was the
Yeah, it could
origin
be.
of the,
If that's how long they've been in I mean, if they had a motor vehicle refund,
Okay.
it would have been refunded,
Okay, so
back
it's
then, if they're-
the vendor was entered in 2001.
right.
Okay. Gotcha.
It could have been modified as soon as, last May, if this status here changed from active to temporary or something like that. The profile itself could have been set up wrong. Anytime we make any kind of change at all to a profile, it changes that modified date.
Gotcha.
All right.
okay. I just want to, again, call attention to the fact that the two firms the school department uses for legal expenses are at $283,000 and $154,000 year-to-date. I'll hold off on that one. I also figured I'd ask, on warrant P24, -130, page 224 and page 219, there are two members of the school committee who are each receiving $225 for school committee registration. Not a ton of money, but they are the only two. And I figured I would ask if, on the school side, if there've been any kind of efforts to, regulate or restrict subscriptions, registrations, reimbursements to things given the current situation. Because they're already being paid. They're being paid more than any committee has in the past. So I would just like to know why we are reimbursing them for programs that are entirely voluntary.
Do you have a PO number I can reference?
The PO numbers are different. This one is 1068, hang on, nope. 323-43395. The invoice is labeled Discovery Justice.
Okay, so this did hit the school's general fund. We got a ticket reimbursement.
Ticket to a reimbursement for a ticket to a gala?
Just a gala for school.
Gala.
Yeah.
Does that provide professional development, or is that the word I've,
Good outreach.
second definition for that?
Second. Asking for gala.
Hardly say that's supporting.
Let me look into this.
Definitely.
There is another PO if that one might have some more information.
Yeah, I feel like this should have been more scrutinized by my office
Yeah, it
for an
looks like
understanding.
we reimburse elected officials for attending a gala.
It might have been confused with the trainings being exempt from 30B,
Oh, that,
and I think that confusion turned into we're allowed to pay it.
one hell of a training. All right, the second PO is
Yeah.
323-434-24.
Okay. Can I get back to you on that?
Yeah, sure, I didn't know if you'd want to call that one up too.
Oh, yes, sorry.
$225 each.
Yeah, it's hitting the general fund. It's another school committee member who got reimbursed for this.
Right.
Can you scroll down a little bit?
A little bit
Madam?
further.
Yeah.
Back up,
Down.
Down.
Just to make sure we've got the receipt fully documented. Could you go back to page 1? I just want to see the signature at the bottom of the page. Dr. Cobb's. Okay. Thank you. Now another PO, 800-940-35. Just sort of a random, somewhat random focus on other contract services, given the committee's distaste for such a vague description. Not a lot of money, but doesn't hurt to shake the tree.
CFC.
this is a grant payment.
Okay.
Be an adjunct faculty.
That's the-
Would we be able to tell how much is left in this grant and whether or not we're still paying this employee after a grant is over?
I'd have to get that from the school department.
Well, good luck. And then one more for now. But I would like to focus on a vendor instead of an individual PO. I don't know if you'd prefer the name or the number.
The number would be great.
6725. There's two bills here for in-state travel, and they're rather small, but there's $1,800 year-to-date, and I would like to know how we've reached $1,800 year-to-date, unless they're running to North Adams and back.
So this is also being paid through grant funds.
Flight. Hey, can we go back down to that?
Up.
Whichever way you were going, backwards.
They're reimbursing someone for travel and training with
It's
grant
like an
money.
extra night in a hotel.
If it's within the guidelines of the grant agreement, it's allowable.
All right, well, just want to make sure we don't take grants for granted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council Lally. I got a couple, Ms. Audit, just to ask you. On page 82, page P24-124, it's the PO number 13340465. I believe it's the main pool, but I just want to make sure. Year-to-date, $4,779,592.23.
This is for the Cosgrove pool. We used ARPA money to pay for this. That's this code here. So they hired the company. We covered the payroll costs through ARPA money.
Okay.
Basically, anything that would come with rebuilding a pool.
Okay, fair enough. On page 230, the PO number, it's 39240691, year to the date, mean June 30, 24, to the today, it's $118,685. That's transportation, so it's only about 2 months. It's about $118,000 that we paid to this vendor. And
So this is being paid out of the general fund. So it is special education transportation.
She said general fund.
So, it would be exempt from 30B, but given the recent ordinance, they would have to follow procurement laws.
All right. That's all I have for now.
I just had a couple of questions. Actually, only one. Putting aside the two issues that Councilor Lally brought up about galas, as elected officials, I mean, could the five of us just suddenly decide we were going to go to a $500 a pop gala in South Boston for some function? Doesn't it have to be directly related to the duties for which you're elected? Or, I mean, how would we ever control that?
Through the chair?
Sure.
I just want to add to that, Counselor, we do get invited to that kind of stuff all the time. And if we don't pay for it, we don't go.
See, I don't have your charm. I'm not getting those invitations.
Well, not all the time, I might be, but we get more than enough.
But seriously, I mean, I'm asking it obviously because people watch this program. Frankly, if I were going to go somewhere like that, I'd write a campaign check.
Yeah.
And then I'd, pay for it, and then it would be reported to the Office of Campaign Political Finance. But I'm just kind of intrigued by the fact that if you're an elected official, you can do that? I mean, are there no DOR guidelines or?
There are. You'd have to be a school employee or an employee to get a reimbursement for any kind of travel and training.
How about an elected school committee member? Past, present, or future? I mean, would you check and see if that's a proper use? Because, if all 7 or 8 went,
Yeah.
let's say all 8 of them decided they were going to go to a gala and it costs $250 a ticket, you're talking now.
I'm definitely going to take a look at that, and I definitely do need to speak to my staff and go over that
Because,
again.
this is what I think is so important with your position and getting everyone on the same page.
Right.
All of us should follow the same guidelines. All of us should be held accountable for the same regulations. If we're elected officials on the council or Southeastern Regional representing Brockton or the Brockton School Committee, be uniform and consistent in everything we do.
Right.
I just think that's the fair thing to do.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll look into it, and I'll get back to the committee
Thank
on
you.
that. And that just further highlights, the intricate, details and difficulty of, we're human too, and we make mistakes as well.
Yeah.
That just ties into the whole kind of point I kept making the other night, is that we can't do it alone. We really need this to start at the department level, make sure that they're adhering to any laws and regulations in place when it comes to something as simple as paying bills. Because, we'll do our own audit on this end, but clearly mistakes will happen from time to time. So it's definitely a team effort.
Just to close, I think what frustrates some of us is you are doing everything you can to maintain the very best audit function in the city. And when I hear that people don't want to track sick and vacation days, or people are going to galas, there just seems to be an indifference, and I think that's what bothers me the most. How do we fight that indifference? How do we somehow get across that it's not a rich city, everything we do is paid for by the residents with either fees or excise taxes or, property taxes, and I just, I don't want to disrespect that. I guess.
I agree. I think that the right way is what we're doing right now, just putting it in a public forum, talking about it more and more, just so everyone can start to learn this stuff. You know, because I could be wrong about this, but a lot of this stuff I'm getting from a lot of people. No one seemed to know any of this until now. So we're definitely at a crossroads. I think transparency is key.
The last question I have for you is, when you get a chance, and there's no hurry because there's nothing we can do about it, I'd like to look back a couple of different Junes, like June of '23 and June of '22, to see if any more of those retirement parties paid for by the taxpayers took place, because I have an awful feeling that was not an isolated incident. I just have that feeling that maybe I don't want to know, but I have to know.
I agree with you on that, Councilor Farwell. I got a lot of flack for rejecting that bill. What's the big deal? I even had someone from school forward me the laws and say, it says it right here that we can use this. And that's when I say, you need to hold on for a second. This is where the common sense cap needs to come on. All I have to do is send this to the DOR right now, and they're going to say a big fat no, because these guidelines that they write for us in place to allow things like if you have a meeting right now with 5 of you in the office, and you want to buy refreshments, you want to buy some cookies and some water and stuff like that, so people can be sustained because you're serving some kind of public service, right? Someone could walk in off the street right now and ask you a question, and here's a bottle of water. That's an allowable expense. There's a section in the law that talks about reimbursements and things like what just happened with the reimbursement with the committee members and stuff, and I'll read it again and get more detail. That states you can throw retirement parties, but it's very detailed as to what's allowable. I'll forward that to the committee so everybody has a sense of what is and isn't. And this is something I eventually want to put on my webpage because I'm really sick and tired of having to explain this. It's limited in a sense. The entire public needs to have been invited, in a nutshell. It has to be a public event. So if you're throwing a retirement party that doesn't directly serve the public, has a public purpose, and the public's not invited, you can't use taxpayer money for it. You have to pool the money amongst yourselves, amongst colleagues, which every city and town that I know does, to pay for it. And somehow we're manipulating verbiage in a law to suit our needs, when that, one, shouldn't need to happen, because didn't we just learn our lesson from what just happened 11 months ago? We have to start being prudent with our expenditures. We have to start thinking that taxpayer money doesn't equate to free money. We have to start thinking this way when we conduct business. We want to celebrate our retirees. We want to throw parties and show our appreciation for all the hard work that all public sector employees do. That doesn't mean that we can spend taxpayer money on it, and that we can manipulate the laws in a way to serve our purpose, because it's just easier that way than to have to send out a mass email and send a hat around for everyone to throw 10, 20 bucks in, which is what you're supposed to do.
Well, the first thing that came to my mind is a union would pay for it. I mean, at the fire department, you would never see Chief Nardelli throwing a party for his retirees and expecting the taxpayers to pay for it. You wouldn't see Chief Perez do that. You wouldn't see Jim Plouffe or the collector treasurer or you or anyone else. And I think what really bothered me most is the 18% gratuity. They couldn't even pass the hat and pay for the gratuity for the wait staff. They expected the taxpayers to do it. And again, as I say, as long as my family loves me, I'm happy being the skunk at the lawn party and talking about these things. I don't care. It just has to stop.
Right.
It has to stop.
My first question when I was getting all of that flack, just right off the back, and by the way, I did confirm it with the DOR, and they were pissed that I even gave it to them. Because I'm like, you really need to drill this into everybody's head. The first thing I asked them was the public invited? Crickets. I don't care how many people were there. Was the public invited? It's not a public event. You can't use taxpayer money to pay for it. That's it.
Thank you for being so honest on that and for holding your position. There are other people who would cave and just kind of slide that through. And the fact that you didn't do that speaks volumes about who you are.
Thank you. And I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I do want all, city employees, there's so many of us, there's 4,500 of us, to understand that there's no function in these offices and these departments that doesn't have some kind of law or rule written on every single thing we do. It's not a free-for-all. And we shouldn't be, hoping that this law here justifies me to do whatever I want. It doesn't work that way.
Chairman, I lied. I have one last comment, and I'd like kind of unanimous consent from the committee. On all of our future agendas, I'd like to close it off with comments and recommendations by the auditor, just as we have council recognition at the end of our agenda. So I think every meeting we ought to at least post that the auditor may want to come in and offer some comments and some recommendations to us, and I think it's good to have that dialogue.
It's a great idea. I think it's.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Well, since I came late, I would think
Yeah.
Phil should go next if he has some.
Why don't you go?
Okay. Page 41 through 60. It's a whole listing of, it says real estate tax, REV revenue, I guess. There isn't a PO number.
Then those are probably refunds. What pages was it again, Counselor?
Okay, it's in packet 122. And it's pages 41 through 60. And they're all voucher numbers, it says. And it adds up to $1,357,881.28. I'm just curious what those are. I can bring them to you if you want me to take them over.
Councilman Uccello, I think that's when you apply for abatement. It's a reimbursement.
Oh, okay, I was just curious what that is.
From the overlay account,
From the
Mr.
overlay
Chairman.
account.
It's a
Yes.
reimbursement?
It is.
Can you explain to me from the overlay account?
In other words, it could be a couple of things. It could be veterans' benefits, and we offset some of the taxes owed, but more than likely, it could be an abatement done by the assessors, and by law, we're not allowed to see the names of the people who are being granted an abatement, but we do see the amounts
Okay.
on
You'll see them
the
out, but you're not going to see the names. Yes.
on the warrant.
So it is a liability to the city because it's revenue that we're not getting, we're giving out as a credit of sort, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
all right, so it is an expense. All right, I better understand that. Okay, page, it's still in packet 122, page 64. I didn't realize we had so many registry of deeds fees. They totaled year-to-date $23,654. What documents are we, I guess, recording at the registry of deeds throughout the year? I didn't know we were
It's
buying.
probably
that
in
many
relation to a tax taking.
Oh, tax takings? Okay, that's what it is.
They're pretty high.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now it makes, once you said that, that makes sense to me. I'm saying to myself, what are we buying this? How many properties is the city
No,
purchasing?
anything to the registry of deeds
Okay.
directly has to do with
Tax takings and things like
with the
that.
deed to
Okay.
a home.
All right, page 96, another transportation, year-to-date, $1,236,807.31. That starts off PO 39241 458. So page 96.
So this is another general fund. It's for transportation costs, school.
I mean, they really don't give you much information.
Oh, it's probably further down. So this looks like about a month's worth of transportation fees for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A whole lot of kids. It is special education. That's a month.
That's 1 month, huh? Okay. Well, that's another one that I've marked down that I'm gonna want to see a little more detail when I take a visit, so. Okay, thank you very much. I'm all set for right now.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah.
Are you all set, Council?
Yes, I'm all set,
Oh,
thank you.
okay. Thank you.
Madam
Council
Auditor,
Griffin?
I have
Go
one.
right.
It's not a large expense. It just strikes me as the category tourism promo. The PO is 121-50007.
What page is that one, Phil?
97.
97. And what packet? 122 or the other one?
Not sure. This is it.
Okay, so it's the other one. So it's this one.
Just weird.
So this is through the mayor's office. It's for the Mayor's Summer Concert Series.
Okay.
Okay.
It was paid out of the general fund. Oh, it looks like it was to pay the band.
Okay, yeah. That looks appropriate. I didn't realize it was under tourism promo. I didn't realize we were paying it. That's fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You all
That's all I
set,
have, Mr.
Council?
Chairman. Thank you.
Is anybody have any other question? No? So, all right, we just, any question or comments? So, can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourn?
Second?
All in favor? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Auditor.